You became a chiropractor because you believed in something. And somewhere along the way, between the skeptics who questioned why you didn't become a real doctor, the insurance system that pays you less than you're worth, and the business coaches who hyped you up but never really felt like they fit you, you started to lose connection to that dream that brought you to chiropractic in the first place. The dream got buried in the red tape of a system you were never meant to fit inside of. I'm Dr. Alex, fellow DC, and your host of The Rooted DC. This is where we stop trying to fit someone else's definition of what makes us legitimate and start reclaiming our own identity and worth. Welcome back to the show. I wanted to build on something that I mentioned at the end of last episode, our first episode, which I went on a few tangents on. But one of the things that has been coming up for me in this conversation of our worth as a profession, it's searching for legitimacy within the healthcare system and what our values really are as doctors, as healthcare providers, as all of the things. And it's been interesting because I've actually been learning Kabbalah. I wasn't going to talk about this, but here we go. So I've been learning Kabbalah, which was this thing that came across my path just randomly and isn't a religious thing necessarily. It is a spiritual thing, I would say, but it's kind of a framework for how do we connect more with our spiritual side and whatever our version of God is. And it's where I'm learning it is led by a guy who's also a seven-figure entrepreneur, business owner, owns a supplement company. But so a lot of it is related to business. And I've been listening to one of his trainings, and there were a couple of healthcare practitioners who came on and talked there. One was a physical therapist and one was a pediatrician. And even though we feel different as a profession, we deal with and have different things that apply to us because of our position within healthcare as kind of being like redheaded stepchild of being a doctor, whatever that is still an undertone for us that I think inspires us to feel like we are different. I heard both of these providers in other worlds say, well, the system's broken, so I've been doing my own thing, and then go on to talk about whatever the issue was there. And we can all relate to that. The system's broken. We're trying to be part of the system. I don't understand why, but that's a different thing. We are. That's the reality. And within that, it inspires us we initially come from, and the guy who was leading this even said, he's like, doctors are the worst entrepreneurs because we just want to help everybody. And so we make decisions where we don't do things the way that running business in a way that's sustainable is generally taught. And I think this goes across the board. And so this can turn into that part of this worth and identity conversation is not even the idea of niching down. And I'm someone who has finally niched down to where I am very focused on kids. And I have some parents that also see me, but all of my messaging, everything is driven at kids. And 75% of my practice now is kids, which is awesome for us. And it took something to get there. And so where I started all this that is, I challenged us all to think about at the end of last episode. And if you didn't listen to it, that's fine. I can challenge you again. But to think about the things we do in practice that are driven by it being the best, right, energetic choice for us as business owner and most aligned with who we are and how we want to serve our patients and do all of the things versus it being something driven by this lack of worth or feeling like we have to do it a certain way in order to be successful because someone told us that we did, or that's the only way to do it. And all of that is not true. Entrepreneurship, owning a business. And I'm speaking more on this episode to those of us who own a practice, which is a good portion of us. But there's this part of that's innovative, that's challenging the status quo, that is different. And that really doesn't fit into the world of healthcare because there's so many rules and regulations and red tape. So it becomes this dance of how do we balance these two things? And what advice are we going to take? And who are we looking to get that from? And how do we not stretch ourselves too thin or dilute our message because we are trying to help everyone? The pediatrician that I heard talking was one example of this. So it was like he had this traditional pediatric clinic that was set up in the healthcare space and how you're supposed to do that and billing insurance and high overhead and like all of that stuff that some of us are dealing with, right? And how we create practices. That was my first iteration of practice. And then he'd also started this mental health clinic for adolescents because that was something that they noticed was a big need in their community. So he took it on and did it. How many of us can relate to this, right? And then the thing he really wanted to do was actually having a mobile clinic that could go to parents and take some of the burden off of missing work and all the things if you have a sick kid and all that. Great, cool, innovative idea. the one he was the most excited and passionate about, and the one he was having the most trouble putting all of his energy into because he was stuck in the grind of these two other systems and had taken on this other thing with the mental health stuff that wasn't necessarily his area of expertise, but he was trying to fill a need in a hole. And so his energy and focus was diluted. And this is something I think about actually with having this podcast and the stuff I'm starting to do with the PhD that I'm working on, and how do we really start to grow and heal as a profession and come together as a unified thing. That is all one thing I'm working on. And I'm still in practice, like all of you. And it, it can be hard to divide our attention in ways, but for me, there's something to be said for this, me practicing and what I'm doing here actually relate to each other in a way that helps them both grow at the same time, ideally, in an ideal world. So I want you to think about this was an objective example of somebody who, as a health practitioner, that I've written about. I don't know that I've talked about before on the show, but I've written about kind of this. We have this servant leader heart, and I had the opportunity to be a guest on the On Purpose podcast with Dr. McCoy and Dr. Kent recently. I don't think that interview's out yet, but we also talked about this idea of servant leadership. And a lot of us are taught to give, to love, to serve, to do. That was a big thing at Life University. And coming from that place of giving out of abundance. Most of us give out of a completely empty cup and there's no abundance and nothing left. And then we burn out. And then we go through these journeys that I've been on where eventually we come back, maybe if we're lucky. And there's this dark side to that servant leadership. And I'm getting to what I actually want to talk about with this today. But it's that thing where we have to really look at, what are we giving from? Is our cup full, or are we giving out of sense of that's where we get our worth from? And that's not to say it's wrong to get our sense of self-worth from that space, but if it's driven by a neediness that we have to fill within ourselves in order to feel like we're doing well and have value in the world, is in giving it all away. And or is it driven by, this is really how we serve from a healthy and way where we're filled up and have good boundaries around what we need as well? Because that big issue there is it becomes about everybody else and not ourselves. I wrote a book about this too called Unearthing Selfless Syndrome. It's geared a lot at women at the moment, and I'm rewriting it to kind of be more applicable to us as health care providers, as chiropractors, as people in this space where we have that desire to serve. And how do we do it in a way that actually also serves us and doesn't just give us all away? And so one of the places I have been looking at this, and I brought this up on the last episode, is for me in pricing and in how I do things in my office, being fully cash, because I don't bill insurance anymore. I will give people super bills, but and another thing I'm working through is that I still have a lot of anger towards the insurance industry, who literally took half my income overnight and decided that they'd overpaid me anywhere from 1 to 3 years prior on claims that I'd already paid staff. I'd already paid the provider who provided the services, because I had 7 providers working for me. And I was just out that money. Like, there's nothing I could do. And that was just that. I didn't have the pockets to fund someone going after them and being like, what the heck, man? And I have since met another chiropractor who actually did that and fought the case and won, but the lawyer's fees took the whole settlement. So it really wasn't worth it in the end. So anyways, however you choose to get paid, right? This is one of those areas where the lack of self-worth can really show up. And so what I have done is I have been moving more towards a subscription model in my practice and working in family units rather than individuals. Though I have some individual options, because I do have those occasional people who it's just one person from the family seeing me. But primarily, I see families these days, and everybody comes in together, and I have family visits, and it's awesome, and I love it. And so I was looking towards other organizations that kind of teach how to do pediatric stuff, and realized that the high care plans and high price tag isn't really my style. I really like the subscription thing. So I took the step of just asking the people that I have under this model to give me feedback. And I'm like, what can make it better? I literally talked to them all when they came in last week. What can make it better? Is there anything that's missing that would feel like the value is a more fair exchange or whatever it is? And all of them were like, we love it. It's great. And I don't feel like I need to come in as much as what you're saying. Because what I had done is I had actually made these unlimited, and this is the self-worth thing, right? And worth is our profession. I've been like, unlimited visits for this much for the whole family. And some of you have probably done this, and that your cost per visit was way, way, way down. And nobody took advantage of that. Most of them are only coming in twice a month. So I really looked at, for me, that was the feedback I got. I'm like, okay, they love it. And I don't need to give away the farm, right? I don't need to take that step of the unlimited part was not the selling point. It was just that they have this option to all coming together and to get the care that they need and have it be affordable, which is what I was going for. And in a way that still compensates me in a way that feels good. And part of that wasn't feeling great. So it wasn't that I need to change my whole model of how I do things or anything. There's just these little tweaks. So I now have made the little tweaks where I got rid of one thing I was doing altogether because it really didn't make it a whole lot of sense. And then I tweaked the subscription packages that I'd created to be more by frequency and by family size, and just let that be okay. So I have a monthly option if the whole family's coming in once a month, and then I have a twice a month, which is where most people are. And then I have, if we've got a whole family who's in an acute crisis, we've got an option for that too. And I didn't do the massively discounting my services or feeling like I need to give them all this extra stuff. It was just, this is good. It's enough. People are happy. They love it. And there's still things I'm going to add back in that I hadn't started doing since I took a break from practice for 3 years, which is like sending thank you notes and birthday cards and some of the little things that just make people feel good. I ordered stickers again for the kids, and there's things we can do to level up our service without having to give it all away and without that drastically slashing our prices, especially when if you are functioning in the cash space or you're moving more towards the cash space or you're not taking insurance. I know my own journey when I initially got out and got into practice. I was 28 and I moved to Alaska, where it's like at least 10 years behind the rest of the country in terms of how things work. The insurance boom was still going on. I could get reimbursed $85 for a visit, and we could bill out $300 for a massage. So it was kind of more in line with what the Mercedes 80s were probably like. And everybody took insurance. And even though I really didn't want to, well, everybody else is doing it. And yeah, they pay well. So I guess I may as well do this thing. So I got sucked into that whole thing for 5.5 years. And every year we were hitting the point where they started slashing reimbursement rates and did all this stuff that doesn't feel good. And that makes us frustrated as practice owners, and what the heck, and how do we do this, and how do we survive, and all this stuff. But when we make the choice to be in that system, we give part of our power away. Not part, we give all of our power away. You're giving it away to a big company that can do things like go back 1 to 3 years and say, oh, we overpaid you. Based on what? I did all the things right. I had the documentation. We billed right. We coded right. They paid us. What the heck? And so where are you giving your power away for whatever reason? It could be because you feel like everybody else does it, and so you have to do it. And it's really starting to look at how we start to reclaim some of this, as looking at where are we, I don't want to say allowing, but I'm going to, allowing ourselves to be victims of the system that we are part of and fighting to be a part of. And where can we start to take some of that power back? So maybe it looks like that you move towards taking more cash than insurance. I had to do it overnight because I just lost half of my income. So I was like, yeah, we're done. We're out of network now with everybody. I'm not billing them anymore. People will pay me at time of service. And we don't actually honestly charge enough to make it hard for people to be able to do that. People pay a couple $100 for a counseling session. They can pay whatever your cash price is. And they often will do it happily, which is what I've learned. But there's something that has to change within us in order to hold the space for that to happen. It's not the economy. It's not that people don't value what we do. They do. I promise you. Even if you're in the neck and back pain space, people value what we do. And that first step is the scary step of asking for feedback on what that is. And part of that is to help you start to see your own value and worth within the system of health, wellness, whatever piece of it you fit into, and however you practice philosophically and congruently, and looking at what's congruent about that. One of my biggest struggles is that I have always wanted to see families and kids, and insurance doesn't really work with that. Most insurance companies consider kids experimental, even though we have more research on kids in chiropractic than basically anything else. There were more battles to fight and more trying to be inside of that system, it made it all harder. So I gave myself permission to come out of that system. And then it's much easier to educate people. They just get it. They see the value and they're grateful that there's a way that they can do it and come in as a whole family. And they don't, everybody who comes to see me has insurance. I think I have 2 people who ask for a super bill, and that's their deal. They can deal with it. And I charge them slightly more to have to do that and keep my notes up at a level that, not that I don't do that, but just there's more to it, right? So I'm happy to do that for 1 or 2 people. And eventually they're going to go away because my energy is all at really creating this space where money is energy. I'm starting to learn this. So there's energy in terms of cash flow, and there's energy in terms of my energy and my energy in serving, in that, not that it's all about the money, but it's about this place where there's an even exchange of energy, and there's value in what I provide, and there's value in what my practice members get from coming in and seeing me, and there's kind of this ease and flow that comes with it. So I wanted to share that as an example this week, kind of building on what we talked about last week. And there's all kinds of places where our struggles with worth and legitimacy and all of these things come out. But I think how we structure our business in terms of what we charge and how we try to do it, and when we catch ourselves, so I'm not alone, I know. And when we catch ourselves trying to create unlimited care plans, I mean, it sounds nice, but that's a reflection. If we look back in the mirror and ask, why do I feel like I have to give them that option? It's not actually about that it provides value to them clinically, even. It's about something with ourselves where we don't feel strong enough in saying, this is what it is, and this is what I'm worth, and these are my fees. And so I've had a big shift in that for me this week. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the spiritual work that I'm doing right now, which honestly, if you're not in some way engaged in yourself and working on yourself spiritually, it's going to be hard to do this. And that can look like whatever it looks like for you. I'm not here to judge or push anything on anybody or any of that. It is an important piece that I don't think we acknowledge enough as doctors, business owners, chiropractors, all things like that. That's going to be a piece of this, because your truth has to come from somewhere and your worth has to come from somewhere. And generally, if it's coming from things external to ourselves in the material world, it will be fallible in some way. And so we're not really truly understanding our own value and worth in our community, for ourselves, and the world, all the things. And if you're really unclear on what that is, it's a scary step. But I should say, and there's so much freedom and power to be gained by just asking people what their experience is, what could be better, what can we do to have it be even better. That was literally the question that I asked. Hey, I'm always thinking about these things, and I just want to check in. Is there something I can do to make this better, to make the value exchange even more awesome? And these are the people who are on the unlimited thing. And the thing I got is, we're really happy coming in this often. And I was like, cool, I'm going to let the unlimited thing go, because that actually has no bearing on what they view this as being worth to them. So I'm going to stop there and let you think about all this. I, again, would love to engage in conversation and just hear from all of you, like, what comes up as we talk about some of these things and think through this. We may focus a lot on money in this season, and that's okay, but we'll bring in some other aspects of our profession and looking at other things like systems thinking and some of the stuff that I'm learning in school as well, because that's where we really get at moving this from us as individuals to a whole group, which is part of my goal. And we also have to be working on ourselves as individuals in order to even have that as available to us as well. So with all that, I hope you have a lovely week, and we will see you on the next episode. If today's episode sparked something for you, spend some time with it. Insight is great, but real change takes action. This show exists because chiropractors deserve more than coping strategies to fit into a system that was never really designed for us. If you're looking for more, you can find me on Substack at The Practice Beneath the Practice, where I share even deeper thoughts on this and more. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with another DC that you care about. Reclaiming our legitimacy and rebuilding our identity is a movement that needs all of us. Until next time, stay rooted and remember, you're not alone.